Good morning. Hi, Fiona. Gosh, it's been a little while since I've seen you. It's lovely to see your name pop up. It is 7:49 a.m. here in Melbourne this morning. Hi Sarah, I'm not as chirpy and happy as normal this morning. I'm okay, but I am feeling a little bit triggered. I'm having a PDA moment, and I debated whether to go live and talk about this. Hi Emma, hi Tanya. Oh, good evening. That tells me that you may be in the UK. Hi Lynn. I received an email from you, I believe. I may be mistaken. I get so many emails, but I remember names. Working my way through emails always. Trying to get to the bottom. It never happens. It's like washing clothes when you're raising children. Or when you're not raising children, but you're ADHD. Hi, Christina. Thank you for joining. Hi, Scout. So, normally I wouldn't jump on and talk about these types of things. Hi, Susan. Oh, beautiful island. Oh, it was you, Lynn. Oh, that's good. I thought I was making things up there for a second. So, I want to share this. I'm having a bit of a PDA moment. I seem to be feeling a bit more calmer now because I'm engaged with my wonderful community. It's so nice to see you all. Lana. Oh, not UK. Canada. Oh, how beautiful. Gorgeous. I'm jealous. How are you, Alana? Hi, Cal. So, I'm finding with age, I'm experiencing more and more of PDA shutdown. And really struggling to move through moments of becoming non-verbal. It's hard sometimes because I talk a lot about having a really good understanding of how my PDA autistic brain functions, what triggers it, what it responds well to and doesn't respond well to, and that allows me to have a toolkit to move through moments that are difficult, to sit with the discomfort and move through. But I think it's also really important to get real sometimes and to not continuously take responsibility for the things that are said by others that trigger my PDA. I think this is really important. Now, I have a lot of patience and compassion and empathy, and I do not come from a sense of righteousness or thinking I have all the answers, or, I just wrote a little post on how troubled I feel by the concept of leading authorities. Does anybody notice how much I do this? Anyway, so I understand people are learning. People come into our community and they're new to the journey of neurodivergence, whether that be they've just discovered that they are neurodivergent, or their children have just been diagnosed or identified as autistic or ADHD or PDA. So I absolutely accept and understand that people come into the community and they say things that may be triggering, and I never I sit with the discomfort of that and I move through it because that's to be expected. I mean, geez, if you have a look, sometimes, when your Facebook memories come up on your personal page, oh boy, I do so much deleting of those memories. Sometimes I see puzzle pieces coming up in my Facebook memories and autism warrior mum things I've written before I knew I was autistic, of course. And so, we all come from somewhere. And I don't have any judgment about that, but I do want to share some of the things that I regularly feel triggered by and really struggle with. And I think it's important because I'm always so mindful of not having others feel shamed or called out or embarrassed or upset. I never want people to come to my page or into our community and feel anything that would send them away. I never want that. But I also do feel a responsibility as an autistic person, particularly with a PDA expression, to share some of the things that I really struggle with. And one of those things this morning that really upset me, you can read it in the title. I often don't look at where my content has been shared because sometimes something I write will be shared and there will be comments down there saying things like, oh yeah, there's no such thing as PDA. It's just someone who doesn't want to work, someone who's lazy, what a load of crap. And that's fine. I'm used to seeing that. I don't find that so upsetting, believe it or not. What I find upsetting or triggering for me personally is when members of my community, autistic people, people who are diagnosed PDA, ADHD, we share stories from our lives. We give insights into how our brains operate, our neurodivergence, and then people comment or they share our content and say things like, well, now that you understand how your brain works, you can see that it's irrational and you can change your thinking or you can change your behaviours. Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry, but it almost makes me want to cry. It's so ableist. It's completely dismissive of the disability. People see adults like myself sitting here articulating. It seems as though, we have this almost gifted expressive language, but that's because we're often traumatized and very sensitive and we carefully select our words. We're very skilled in how we formulate our language. This is characteristic of being autistic. It's not proof that we're not autistic. And I find it so dismissive when people hear examples of what it is to be autistic and then challenge us to not be autistic anymore. They read something we've written or hear something that we've shared from our own experience and go, well, now that you know how you operate, you can take that information and change how you respond. No. Actually, no. The reason that we share our stories is so that members of the community, professionals, our families, friends, our partners, gain an insight and an understanding of how our brains work. Being autistic, being PDA, being ADHD, those aren't conscious choices. Those are not, they're not identities and cultures we take on because we choose to. We don't go, oh, I'm going to behave autistic today and tell the world I'm autistic. Or I'm going to just, a lot of people actually come to the conclusion that people like me are attention seeking and want to be special. I've seen this written underneath little documentaries I've been a part of. I've seen psychiatrists come in and say those things about people in my community that have a similar autistic expression to me. These are professionals saying things like, these women are not autistic. They're probably something else, but they're definitely attention seeking. Oh, Lord. And you know, we hear this all the time. All the time. So not only have we gone our entire lives being misunderstood and judged and not understanding ourselves, particularly when we're diagnosed as adults, we continuously hear this. Continuously. So I try not to follow where my content is shared and read those comments. But I did today, and I did see somebody saying that PDA thinking is irrational and that once we understand our thinking, we can change it. Well, then, let me tell you, if I could change my thinking, change my being, and change my doing, and not be who I am, then I just wouldn't be autistic. There's masking, there's changing the outer expression of how I show up in the world so that you will accept me, so that I will fit in, but I will never be happy that way. I was never happy masking, ever. And today, autistic people are still encouraged to mask. Our children are still encouraged to mask. When we ask our children to sit at a desk for 6 hours a day and not move and quiet hands, we're shutting down who people are. And I feel so sad about this morning. I come on here and I'm usually really happy and really positive, but my heart breaks every time I see an autistic person's way of showing up in the world as being non-functional, described as non-functional, irrational. My neurobiology as an autistic person is 100% functional. The way I move my body, the way I process my environment, the way I am in the world is 100% functional. I get to thrive today. I get to be happy. I get to be self-accepting because I love who I am. And I get to love who I am because I'm surrounded by an entire community of other autistic adults. And I can guarantee you now that every single one of those people I'm connected with has suffered and struggled and battled their way through life. To be engaged inside of our community, you know, we're only seeing surface level stuff. When people read our posts, that stuff is skimming the surface of what we've been through to get to where we are now. And this is not a rant about being on my pity pot. It's not about self-pity. It's about being real. All of my kin in the autistic community, including families of my kin, are subjected to gaslighting and ignorance every single day. And then people don't understand why autistic people show up in the world angry and defensive and on high alert and traumatized. They don't understand why PDA adults might snap at people. And it's because we're constantly exposed to things that hurt us, but we find a way to sit with the discomfort and push through it. And we've been doing that our whole lives. And it starts in childhood. So many children begging not to go to school, begging to be able to move their bodies in the way that they need to. And by the way, I'm sitting here doing this at the moment. I'm not trying to hide it. It just happens to be off camera. I stim, I rock, I make unusual sounds with my mouth. And I hid that stuff all of my life because I didn't want to be targeted. And the outcome of that was that I targeted myself. I turned on myself. We get to a space where we don't want to go on anymore. We don't want to live anymore. Because there are so many expectations placed upon us. There is so much pressure placed upon us. And even today, even when people are diagnosed, which means they fit a criteria that outlines challenges. I mean, the word disorder is attached to us. Disability. Autism is a disability. And yet there is still an expectation that our children, and there's a panic and a desperation that our autistic children will not live autistic lives. And this isn't true for every single family. This isn't true for every single professional or support network. And then we wonder why our children are traumatized. We wonder why the world is filled with traumatized autistic adults. My brain is not irrational. My brain is perfectly rational. Rational is a subjective term. It's subjective. What's rational for me may be different to what's rational for you. And that, my friends, is what diversity is. Neurodiversity. When we talk about neurodiversity, we are not just talking about the difference between diagnoses. We're not just talking about autistic people and non-autistic people. We're talking about different brains. We're talking about variety and cognitive processing, neurobiology, bodies, brains, beings, central nervous systems. I wish this war would end. I wish it would just end. It hurts me so much to see my autistic community in so much pain, so much of the time. So much pain, so much sadness, so much rejection, so much unidentified, undiagnosed, intergenerational trauma. It's there. You know, there are so many threads of trauma throughout our bloodlines as autistic people because there are so many people in our family history that are undiagnosed and unidentified neurodivergent. And that just continues to move down the line, down the bloodlines, until someone really feels it. And someone stands up and says, you know, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. And that is where you find autistic adults online with pages, sharing their stories, putting ourselves out there to be judged and abused and misunderstood. And it's not just autistic people, it's their families as well. It's our families, our mothers and our fathers and our siblings and our carers being gaslit and blamed for our neurobiology. And today I'm just really feeling it. I'm really feeling it. I'm still doing this. Big deep breath. Any therapy that uses terms like quiet hands, sit on your hands, that seeks to teach our children to be extremely different than who they are organically and inherently is dangerous. And it's often sold to our families at a time where we are so vulnerable and so scared and so uninformed. And we jump in there. I was one of those parents. We jump in there and we put our children in therapies that give them this really strong messaging that they're not okay as they are. Supportive therapies all the way, figuring out their unique needs and supporting them, not changing them, not fixing them, not trying to make them not autistic. I want people to know that autistic people are the most incredibly beautiful, selfless, deep thinking, deep feeling, burdened social justice warriors, always outstretching their hand. And when they don't, and when they're angry, and when they're triggered, they're traumatized. They're tired. And we all know what that's like. My brain is not irrational. It is completely functional. It responds to my environment in the way that it knows how. My body, my brain is hypersensitive for a reason. My feelings are deep and my thinking is deep. And my neurobiology requires extreme protection. My being requires extreme self-preservation, because we are taught from a very young age that our no does not matter. Our no is often changed to a yes. And this is true for many children. Autistic people often are riddled with self-doubt. We are often confused around the definition of healthy relationships because we haven't been exposed to many of those, because we've been forced into social skills groups. And the desperation around us having social networks has meant that we've been encouraged to disconnect from who we are, disconnect from being able to attract people who are like us, who we are genuinely interested in, and just attach to anybody who will accept us. That's what social skills groups can often teach autistic children. And then we find ourselves in unhealthy relationships, and that continues into romantic relationships, and on it goes. So, my thinking is not irrational. My thinking is the result of many things. My neurobiology is perfect and intelligent and wise and smart. My central nervous system is sensitive, and my brain knows exactly what to do to protect it. My behaviour is completely functional. The way I move my body is how I regulate my emotions. When I'm excited, when I'm nervous, when I'm anxious, when I'm happy, when I feel joy, my autistic body is perfect as it is. I am not non-functional. I am not a second-rate version of a non-autistic person. I am a proud, perfect and whole autistic person. And thank you for being here to support me this morning in a time of vulnerability and sensitivity.